G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Stevie Dawn Carter from Stevie Dawn Inspires, based in Mansfield, Texas, USA. Thanks for your time today, Stevie.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with how we know each other. We both recently began using Podmatch to find guests and cast for guests to go on. And so we connected on that new platform.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. You know, it's been nice. It's really introduced me to a lot of cool people. So I've loved it, including you. There you go.
Thank you. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So I am a professional speaker and coach. So I travel the country speaking, talking about leadership, emotional intelligence, unstoppable success. And then I also do a lot of one-on-one coaching and some group coaching programs. So I would say 75% of my money comes from the stage and about 25% comes from coaching.
And you've got quite a business background. Apart from this business, you had 4 businesses before. So you're a coach that can obviously, and a speaker that can speak very much to the topic. And that's a lot more powerful, obviously, than those that have never actually had their own business.
Yeah, you know, I think it is. And I think even if I'm not talking to business owners, it's that idea of, failure. Well, I think anybody who's owned a business, whether it's successful now or not, at some point in that journey, you have learned failure well.
Yes.
And I do think it gives you a different place to speak from and to motivate and inspire from when you've had some tough times, right? It's not as convincing when it's somebody who just everything worked perfectly for the first time. So I am definitely not that person.
Yeah, that's right. I think most of us, 99% of us as business owners, we don't knock it out of the park with the first business. So it's yeah.
Yeah. My first business actually was in Australia.
Oh, right.
That was my first business. At 17 years old, I bought a dance studio.
Wow.
In Port Augusta, Australia. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And knew nothing about running a business. Dancing was my career at the time, so knew everything about dance teaching, but knew nothing about running a business. And while the studio outlived me and I ended up leaving after 9 months and selling it to somebody else, I learned a lot about business in the 9 months I was there. And the most important part of that being that you're supposed to have a business visa to be there.
Yeah.
And do things. So technically I was deported from Australia and told to not come back for 7 years. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that was the next question. Tell us how you started out. So that was the first business. What did you do after getting back to the US?
Yeah. So after I got back to the US, still thought that dance studios was the way to go because that was still my career. So I opened up a dance studio in Kansas with my parents as my co-investors. And we had a blast, had a great time. Everything was going really well until I suffered a career-ending injury.
Right.
And then I had to pivot, right? I had to find something else because I couldn't teach dance anymore.
Yep.
And went back to school, got my degrees. And one of the things that my husband absolutely loved was fine art. We love collecting fine art. So we opened a little art gallery. We did some pop-up shops. Definitely learned that it's really hard to sell art, but yet it's really fun. Yep. So we had a ton of fun with it. We still have Carter Fine Art as a business, and we still occasionally do some pop-up shops, which is fun, but definitely learned that was not going to make me money. So again, back in the workforce, doing the working thing in the meantime, and just hit a point where I said, this just isn't it. I really want to be my own boss, and gosh darn it, I got to find a way to do that. So we were in a position where my husband could be my investor and support it with his financial career and what he was doing. So he said, look, you got 3 years. You got 3 years to make it happen, decide what you want to do. So I quit my job with no plan and decided that, I knew a lot about corporate training and speaking and leadership. That had been my education. So why don't I use that? And I just kind of hung out my shingle. And almost 3 years later, instead of having to go back to work, which was our original contracted deal, I actually got to retire him from corporate to come work for me. Excellent. So that was a really cool success in the fourth time we were doing it.
Right. Well, what year was your first business and how old were you?
I was 17. I cannot remember, maybe 1999. Yep. I'm going to be 40 next year. That's all I remember.
Yep. Okay.
40's coming up. That's where I'm at.
And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth?
Yeah. So I would say, the growth in this business, year one, we did a big fat zero. Year two, I did $17,000, which I thought was amazing after zero. Year three, we did 158,000.
Yep.
And ever since then, we've been pretty steady at about 20% growth year after year or year over year. Yeah. So we've been growing pretty steady since then. Pandemic kind of took us for a little bit of a ride the other direction, but we're back up and we're back moving forward. So that's good.
Yeah, that's wonderful growth. What year did you start this current business?
20, let's see, we're in year 8, so 2014, I think. Okay. 2015. Yeah.
And what about team members, full-time equivalents? I assume you started with yourself, and like how many?
Yeah, it started with just me. We actually grew after I retired my husband from corporate. He came to work full-time. We grew up to 10 full-time employees. Yep. And it was great. And I loved them and they were wonderful people, but I hated managing that many people. So we decided to lean it back out. And now there's 3 of us. And then we have a lot of freelancers, a lot of part-timers, and a lot of volunteers as well. Right. So when we all get on a call, there's about 7 right now. Okay.
And did you make that decision before COVID, or that kind of helped?
No, I made that before. I made that in about year 5 of our business, 2017, 2018. Really just kind of this place of, I didn't enjoy managing the people. I was spending so much time managing the people that I wasn't getting to do the work. Yep. And that was just a disconnect that I didn't enjoy. So I told them all, I love you. Let me help you find other work. And then I'm going to take it back down. But we had office space we had to get rid of. We had all the things. And we really took it all back down. And now I'm back home in my office with my sharks, all happy.
Yep.
So.
And when was the moment you felt like you succeeded?
I think the day that I got to tell my husband he could quit.
Yep.
There will never be a day that feels more successful than that moment. He had worked in information technology. He was a computer guy for decades. That had been his only career. And he had golden handcuffs, right? He was making good money. So every time we kind of talked about him doing something different, it was like, well, we're never going to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So that day when we over dinner, I could say, hey, so I did the math and I think we can afford it.
Wow.
That was success for me. Anything after that has just been icing on the cake, because to see him change as a person, not because he's any different, but just the weight and stress of that job taken off of him. I'll do that every day of the week.
Yeah. That's great. I was going to ask, how have you gone? We haven't had many people on that they work in the business with their partner. How's that gone? Have you guys worked well together?
We do. At the first couple of years were a little rough. The first couple months were excruciating. We had to learn a lot about how to communicate. I think communication's the key anyway to all relationships, but definitely for us. But now, we wouldn't have it any other way. He's actually gone back and picked up a side hustle himself. Because he wanted more to do, because there wasn't as much for him to do in our business, especially as we kind of streamlined and scaled. There was even less for him to do. So he was like, I need something else to keep me busy. So he's gone off and kind of found his own little path, which I love. And he's actually started a couple companies over there for him as well. So that's kind of cool. But it really comes down to communication, but we make it work. We're still here. We're still working together full time. He's not here at the moment, only because he had family commitments tonight. So, so he let me take over. But yeah, we're loving it. Absolutely.
What does success look like to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really think of success in terms of feeling. right? So I think we can put numbers on success and we can put goals on success, but at the end of the day, how does success feel, right? What does it feel like when you're there? For me, success always comes with a feeling of peace. That feeling of peace and calm. There's nothing more I have to do. I am here. It is a good place. And I try, when I reach goals and I reach things, I try and sit in that for a minute, right? Because I'm always going to set the next goal and keep it cheap. That's not gonna stop.
I'm the same, but I'm really shit at stopping and celebrating, especially with the team. Yeah. And they need that more than I'm very task oriented. Let's get on to the next thing, people. But it's so important to stop and take a breath and
yeah. You know, something we have done every single year since the very first year, before my husband even worked in the business, we have taken a retreat every single year, just the two of us, and we always take it out of town. It has to be away. We have to get away, right? We go someplace fun, and we do that retreat. And when we had full-time team members, they came to the retreat with us, and it was always a celebration. It was, yes, we're going to plan for next year. Yeah, we're going to have strategy and marketing talk, but it was always a celebration. And those moments always felt peaceful to me, which is what I then considered to be success. Because if I could feel peaceful looking at my team, seeing their smiles, knowing that it's good, then let me just soak that in for a minute before we start getting so focused on the future.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
You know, I think that the number one thing you can do from a marketing perspective is realize that it's a numbers game. It's always going to be a numbers game. And I think we take that for granted sometimes and don't really put the time and effort into it. So for me, when I'm looking at marketing and when I advise my clients to look at marketing, I'm like, look, how do you get more eyeballs? More eyeballs are the place to be. Now they want to be the right eyeballs and you want to have a conversion process after that. But at the beginning, it's all about the eyeballs. So my best advice for people is if you're trying to market, think about that. Think about marketing in terms of eyeballs. Think about how many numbers you can get in front of, and then start working your processes from there. Because once they see it, then how do you sell it, right? That's that second step. But I think the first thing we got to do is realize that it's an eyeballs game and it's a numbers game, and you got to be willing to play it.
How did you fund your business?
So in the beginning, totally 100% self-funded, right? We funded it from our savings, funded it from my husband's paychecks, funded it from my kind of little retirement thing that I could take out when I left my job. Then about 3 years in, we did some personal loans, some business loans to give us that. And we spent it on marketing, right? We got that money and spent it on Facebook ads and marketing and landing pages and copy and brand and all of that to give us that next level up. Now, right, we've kind of paid all that off and we're back to we reinvest every year from our business back into our business because we don't live a real luxurious lifestyle. We just kind of do what we want to do. And that allows us to continue to invest in ourselves. And I always think that's the best investment you can make.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into industry?
Ooh. You know, I think I would, if I had all the funding in the world and I could just start from scratch again, I think I would end up doing the exact same thing. I just would have gotten here faster.
Yep.
Right? Like, I think there's an element of, it just would have been faster. It took me about 5 years to really get it figured out. So now I'm kind of living in the good life. But if I just had all the money in the world, I would have just doubled down on this earlier. And oh man, can I imagine what that would have looked like by now? You know, instead of just being like, oh yeah, we've done over 7 figures. Cool. I think we'd be at the 8 and 9, and that would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, I think the most stressful moment that I had was hiring that first team member and knowing that then I had to pay a salary, like not my husband so much because we had that conversation, but my first additional team member, which was an administrative assistant for me. Mm-hmm. And it was so stressful because I kept thinking, this is money I'm just putting out, right? It's just money going out the door and I'm not used to putting that money out the door. And are we willing to make it? Are we willing to keep our bottom line up? Like, it was so much stress and pressure. And I really did feel that, right? In the first couple of months of her being on the team, because no matter who you hire on your team, they don't turn around and make you money tomorrow.
No,
it is a process of training and learning and structure and all of these things. And so it really was a very stressful time to have to pay her and not feel like it was paying me yet, like not feeling like there was a benefit yet. So I would say if somebody's going through it, like understand that will be a stressful time and you will second guess that choice a lot, but it was so worth it in the end. And I can tell you, just see it through, and that always will increase your bottom line if you stick through it and have a really great team member.
So you would have gone through this same kind of thought process as you kept adding future team members, but it got easier, I assume?
Yeah, it always does, right? So the second team member was a lot easier because I had faith, right? I had faith and proof. And I think that's something that a lot of us as business owners need. Like we can do a lot on faith, but there's a point where the faith starts to get a little trembly and you need something else. When I got to that fourth team member, when I got to the fifth team member, well, I had proof it worked. So I could more easily believe in it. And then it got a lot easier to just make it happen.
Yeah. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think to add the greatest value to the business, I had to become more business focused. I think in the beginning, it's always kind of, in all of my businesses up to now, I've always kind of been about what does Stevie want to do with her life? And we'll just make some money at it. Really, what I think has to happen is at some point, I had to get good at business, right? I always say, like, I don't do math in public. Like, I hate talking numbers because numbers are not my friends. But as a business owner, I got to know my numbers. I had to learn how to do some basic accounting so I can check that my accountant's doing the right things. I had to learn to strategize. I had to learn to market. But at the end of the day, as the business owner, I am always the place where the investment goes the farthest, because if I get better, everybody gets better and everything gets better. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, I always say invest in me getting better. That's going to be the biggest growth.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Oh, I think what I enjoy the least, if I'm 100% honest, is having to train somebody new.
Yep.
Like, right? Like there's just an element of like, I'm super excited you're coming. I'm super excited you're joining us. And we're actually about to train a new team member in a couple of weeks. And this is going through my mind, right? Like I got to go back through all these processes again. Can't they just read my mind and know what it is? That is the most stressful part for me, is having to train people on what I do naturally. Yeah. Right. Because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. It's what I do naturally, but that's not necessarily natural for them. And training them is super stressful, but it's the quickest way to growth.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I think the impact. Somebody said to me once, you will feel like a business owner when you know that you're not responsible just for your livelihood. You're responsible for the livelihoods of several other people. And you know that you make their family work. Yep. Like your payment, your contribution impacts that entire family, because that person gets to go home and put food on the table. And I always thought that was such a great, wonderful thought. But would I ever feel that? And the truth is, yeah, that's my favorite part. My favorite part is when this new team member we're bringing on, I already know how much better her life is going to be for having worked with us. And I can see that, and I can see how this money and this system is going to work for her. Yep. And just knowing that it's going to impact her life and her family, that's everything. That is everything.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I think the biggest mindset shift that I've had to make personally is don't give up. Don't give up, because it's going to get hard. It's going to get boring. It's going to go a direction you don't want it to go. And you're going to have to figure out how to get it back to what you want. But you can't just quit. You can't just give up. There have been so many days that I have wanted to quit. Yep. But I have to tell myself, no, you don't quit. You keep going. And if you keep going, you'll keep being here. And I think especially now, 7-8 years in, where I can look back, I could go, yeah, that's because I didn't quit. Because there were definitely times I could have. There were definitely times that didn't feel good. But I'm still here and I'm still doing it. And I am so proud of that. But it was a mindset shift I had to make, because I was a person who liked to give up. Yeah. I was kind of a quitter in my own way, right? I gave up on a lot of things as a kid and just didn't really have follow through. So that was something I had to shift as a business owner.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think you have to have a morning routine that gets you getting the most important stuff done, right? For me, it's prospecting. It's the number one thing that I have to do in my business. It's the number one thing I don't like doing in my business most days. But I know that if I get up and I do my prospecting 1 hour a week, and that's all I have to do now because of my systems, 1 hour a week makes me 6 figures guaranteed.
Yep.
So if I can just get up and do it, and that's a morning routine for me. It's got to be first thing in the morning. I do it first thing Monday morning. I get up, I have my coffee, I do my prospecting, and it's done.
Yep.
I know I can take the rest of the week and everything can go to crap, and it doesn't matter because I did the one thing I have to do. And I think as a business owner, recognizing that one thing and then making it a part of your morning routine before all the fires, before all the chaos, before the team members, you do your morning routine first. You get the most important thing done. Everything else is gravy.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I've actually got a no morning meeting policy. So I've got
that's awesome.
Greatest energy in the morning and focus. And that's when I work on things where I have to use my brain.
Yep. And even people who aren't always morning people, right? Because I'm not always a morning person. I'd rather sleep in or whatever. I still have the most energy for creativity and problem solving in the morning.
Yep.
And so I always tell people, even if you're not a morning person, get up in the morning and get something done. You will feel better. And I love that you do a no morning meeting policy. That's awesome. We do a no Monday meeting.
Yep.
That's our day. On Mondays, nobody's allowed to attend a meeting. On Mondays, you just get your work done. That's it. Every other day, you're going to do 5,000 meetings, but no meetings on a Monday. You can get your work done.
Yeah, Monday gets shit done day. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. GrowASmallBusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Yeah. So, I think some of the wins for the people, right, is when I've added people, I've always tried to add people that I felt added to our culture, right? I think sometimes we just look for people who fit in our culture, who just are a natural fit, but I also want people who are going to add to it.
Yep.
Who not only fit it, but are going to add. So when I'm looking for people, I'm looking for that. I always hire people from my tribe, always. So I don't put out posts. I don't put out on LinkedIn that I'm looking for none of that. I always hire people from my tribe first because my tribe gets me and they get what we do and they know it's important. And so then what I look for is where's that diversity in thinking, diversity in skill set. And how do I add? And so those have been huge wins for me because those people are the people that truly allow us to go to that next level. I think some of the mistakes, right, or some advice I would give to how to add people to the team is, number one, I do think hiring from your tribe is always a great place to go. So I would definitely say do that. But the other thing is don't take one interview as an answer. Always have some kind of in-depth hiring process. I make people do work. I make people do presentations. I take people with me to my events and see how they interact with my people before I hire them.
Yep.
Like put people through the ringer so that you know they're going to be good. One of the things that I love is I've only had one bad hire, knock on wood, one bad hire so far. And I will tell you that the reason it was a bad hire is that even though in my gut, I knew this isn't a good fit, I love their skill set so much. And I felt we needed it that I was just like, it's still going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. We're going to learn how to talk to each other and work together. It's going to be great. And within 3 months, they were gone.
Yeah.
And that was what needed to be. So I think just to have more of a hiring process, I think is so important, especially as small business owners.
That is a really good point. And I totally believe that small business owners go short on recruitment. They rush it. They fall for the warm body syndrome. I just need someone now to fill the seat, or they just don't understand the value of taking your time. And as you do it the first time, document it and add to that process and procedure every time you hire someone so you get better at it, because it's the most important thing a manager does is recruitment, getting the right people on the bus, as Jim Collins talks about. And so just, add plenty of interviews, steps, reference checks, obviously, craft the job ad so you're talking to the right people, and the more they talk and the more time you spend with them, the better your gut can make a decision on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. Yeah.
What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help the growth?
I think the number one thing you have to be very, very clear on is expectations. I think the thing that holds a culture back and holds a company back is when people don't actually know what you expect of them or what they can expect of you. So one of the things that I learned many, many years ago in my career was that you should have an expectation document that every employee signs. And it not only tells them what you expect, how you expect them to dress and show up and do all the things, how you expect them to approach their work, communicate, very, very clear. But it also then turns around and says what they can expect from you as a manager. Mm-hmm. And I have used that expectation document to actually weed people out during the interview process, because I will give it to them. And if it freaks them out and they're like, I can't do this, I'm like, good, then we don't need to go any further, because this is what I expect. And if this doesn't work with you, it doesn't jive with you, that's okay. Like, one of my things is I need you to be a texting person, because it's all I like to do. Yeah. I will do email. I hate phone calls, right? I really don't want any more Zoom meetings. I really just want you to text me. So if I get somebody who's like, well, I'm not a texter, I don't text. Yep. I'm like, this already is not a good fit. And that is nothing against you or your skill set. But I know me, and I know our company, and I know our culture. And that's the thing. I think we need to realize that as small business owners, the culture starts from us.
Yes.
What is your thing? What are your habits? What are your expectations? What do you do every day? Write all that down and then give that to somebody else and see if they fit it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to grow that culture, be clear in those expectations.
Yeah. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Gosh, what's that word? Balance? Yeah. So I really do. I mean, I laugh about it. I don't know that I call it balance. I call it happiness. And what I mean by that is there's never going to be a day where work is 50% and home is 50% ever. I don't believe that exists in our life. There's always a day that one wins out. My goal is always, am I happy in both spaces?
Yep.
Am I happy in my personal life? Am I happy in my business life? Whatever that looks like, as long as I'm happy at the end of the day, I did it all right. So I do think just finding for yourself what that happiness level is and where you can be happy in both, that's where you need to be. So I know some people are like, oh, well, I only work 4 hours or a 6-hour day, or I only work 3 days a week. Oh, that sounds great. But there's definitely been weeks that I work 150 hours. I mean, it's just, and I don't get sleep. Like that's the life of a business owner for me. So I really think the balance is, are you happy? If you're happy in everything that you're doing, then you're living the life. And that's all we can ask for.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
Oh, gosh. I would probably say, we could probably say almost 10 to 20% of our profit probably goes towards professional development. Mm-hmm. So I always believe in having a coach. I don't think you can be a coach if you don't have a coach. So I'm always getting new coaches to take me to that next level, to help me with those areas that I'm missing. I go to a lot of conferences. I do a lot of educating of myself, because again, I feel like if I'm doing it, then I can show it to the team and we can implement it. But I also have a professional development stipend for each of my employees. Yep. So that they can go and get professional development that works for them, that fits their schedule, fits what they want to do. So I always make that an offer to them as well. So I invest a lot in professional development, and I think it's worth it. I have never had a bad experience.
What about mentors or coaches? You mentioned coaches a moment ago. What areas have you had coaches on? And then lastly, have you had mentors, which are slightly different?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in my more corporate career, I had a lot more mentors, right? People who were just kind of showing me the ropes, helping me along the way, but there was never a payment. There was never like an official responsibility or something to that relationship. And I think mentors are critical. I think we need people who we can go to that we're not paying for their advice or their opinion, but we can go to and say, hey, you've been here, you've done this. What do you think? So right now I have a few less of those because just in the business space kind of went to coaching. As coaches, you know, I've always believed in, I like private coaching, not group coaching as much. That's me personally. I started out, I always pick a coach based on what I need in the moment. Mm-hmm. So when I first started my business, the first coach I got was a sales coach. I knew I didn't like to do sales. I felt weird about sales. I knew I needed to learn sales. So my first coach was a sales coach. After that, I went to a branding coach, because again, okay, now I'm doing the sales conversation, but how do I build this brand? How do I build this empire? that I really want. Right. From there, I went to a mindset and kind of that millionaire mindset deal. I found somebody who was making multiple millions, doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, and said, how did you get there? How did you do that?
Yep.
So I think it's about finding those coaches in those areas that you're specifically looking for. I don't look for generic. I like specialists.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I've been and where I've put my time. But I always think it's good to have one.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I do. I have a board of advisors, not a board of directors, but a board of advisors. And it is a group of 6-7 people. And we get together just once a year as a group. I meet with them all individually throughout the year. But once a year, we get together and I just kind of show them my plan, usually after our retreat of what we're looking at, what we're thinking of doing as a business, where we're headed, and just get their buy-in, get their advice, get their feedback. What do they think? What are we not thinking about? What obstacles may present themselves? And they're all people who have specialties, right, in different areas. There's a legal person, there's an HR person. So they're people who have specialties in different areas, but they all support my mission. And so it's an idea of, it gives me a sounding board as a business owner, but yet they don't have equity or any buy-in into my business. So I don't necessarily have to do what they say, but I do like to listen to them.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Now, you're one of the few business owners I've had on that have exited a business. You've exited 3. Got any advice for the audience?
Yeah, I would say, exiting the business is really, I think you have to decide what you want to get out of it. And so for me, that always came down to, do I want the business to exist without me or not? And I think that's a fair question to ask, right? There are some times, and I have a client who had a business for 24 years.
Wow.
And right before 25, she decided she wanted out. And of course, everybody's asking her, well, are you going to sell it? Like, you've been in business a long time. You've got a book of business. You're good. And she's like, no, because it's my baby and nobody's going to raise it the way I want. So I don't want to see it. Right. So she just, boom, that was it. So her exit was putting all of her clients to other places, making sure there was a transition year. And then she was out. I think you have to decide how you want to exit, right? I have been in my first dance studio when I was in Australia. I really wanted the dance studio to outlive me. It wasn't mine to begin with. I bought in. So I wanted to sell it to somebody that they could then take it and continue to run with it. So that was the decision I made on that one. In the second one, when it was my parents and I in a business together, I didn't want anybody else to have that business after me. It was one of those, it was my baby. It was my dream. It was my family, my space on Main Street. We're in a little tiny town. Like, I loved everything about it. And I had designed it from the ground up. I wouldn't have wanted to see anybody else have it. So I think one of the things I can tell people is just make that decision for yourself of how you want to exit, and then just stick with it. It may not be what everybody else would do, but it needs to be what you're okay with, because in the end of the day, it was your business first, and you need to own that.
All right, Stevie, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I think the hardest thing is to keep with it, no matter how difficult it becomes. That is the hardest thing to do in growing a small business. It's not always going to be easy. It's not going to be magical like we see on social media. There's going to be a lot of hardness, and it's about not giving up and just keep swimming when you get there.
Yeah, it's one of the myths I try and break pretty early on. And people approach me about starting up and they say, oh, you run your own business. You've got all this flexible free time. And I say, well, it's a lot fucking harder than what you think.
Yeah.
So you get to choose when you get to work those 80 hours. I joke, but yeah, it's a lot harder than what.
But it's there. It's a lot harder than people perceive it to be based on what social media shows us.
Yep.
And I'm with you. I think we have to bust that myth, because it is a lot of hard work. What I try and tell my clients is it's work that's worth it.
Yep.
Because you're working for yourself, because you're chasing your dream, your passion, your goal. It's work that's worth it. But that doesn't make it any less work.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's important.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
It's one that I'm sure a lot of people say and a lot of people use, but I'm a Traction and Get It Grip fan. I like both of them together. I think one without the other is kind of missing a piece. So I say those as a combined thing. Traction and Get a Grip by Wickman. It gives me a place, and I go back to it every year at our retreat to say, okay, do we have the right people in the right seats? And are we doing the right things to meet our goals? That's always my question. And those books taught me that.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Oh, see, podcasts, I'm terrible because while I'm on them all the time, I very rarely listen to business related podcasts because I really like true crime. So I end up just listening to murder in the mornings, which my husband thinks is a little awkward, but that's okay. In terms of learning tools, I'm a big believer in courses. I think courses provide us a lot of information. And if there's an area of your business or your life that you're like, man, I just wish I knew a little bit more about this, courses are a great place to start. So I've bought courses for pretty much everybody who sells courses online. I've bought something, right? And I think we need to be good at using those. Buy something. It may not change your life, but learn from those nuggets that you get out of it and then buy the next thing and go into the next investment for yourself. Yeah. But I think courses are such a good tool. And I think more people need to be okay with saying, you know what, I am going to buy into that marketing course because I'm not a marketer. Maybe it'll teach me something. And I think that can be really, really valuable. One
tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I think whatever you're doing as a business, and I'm terrible because I'm going to go again with two tools I could not live without. I could not live without my CRM, and I could not live without my accounting platform. So whatever you're doing to grow in your small business, whatever small business you have, you need some way to track those relationships and to track that marketing and those people that you're selling to. And you need a way to invoice and get paid fast. Online's even better, right? So for years, I was doing the old fashioned, go into QuickBooks and make the invoice, send the PDF of the invoice, wait for the check. I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this to myself? Now I use an online platform and boom, I get paid on the same day. That's the way to go.
Which platform do you use for accounting and CRM?
Yeah, I use, so for my CRM, I use Close, CLOZE app. Close app. I've been using it since before it had a whole pricing structure. I got it on startup and I love that thing. I'll never go to a different CRM. It works so well for me. On the accounting side, I use 17 Hats.
Right.
I like 17 Hats, super simple, really intuitive. And for somebody who doesn't like to do math in public, it allows me to do a little bit of math without hurting my brain. So I'm all for that.
All right. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I think on day one, I would probably tell myself it gets easier. I think day one really sucked. I think the first couple of years really sucked and it was really hard. But y'all, if you can get past it, and I think there's a 3-year hump personally, but if you can get past that 3-year hump, I think there's another hump at about 5. You get past that 5-year hump. Now I'm looking towards my 10-year hump and I'm just like, it's gotten easy. It's not always easy. There's still hard decisions. There's still hard work, but there's an element of it gets easier than it is at the beginning. So don't give up. Don't give into that pain. Pain is weakness leaving the body. That's what the U.S. Marine Corps taught me. So let that pain go. That's your weakness leaving you. It does get easier. And if I could go back and tell myself that, I would have told myself that every single day that first year. And I think that would have helped a lot.
Well, thanks very much for your time today, Steve. I think the audience get a lot of value out of what you share with us and really exciting journey. The first 3 businesses didn't quite work. You're now in the 7-figure, so, $1 million or multiple millions, which is going great. So wonderful growth in 8 years. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. And I just hope that people can be inspired to keep going for themselves. That's all I want to do in the world.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.